today in Proverbs, and we're going to read from the familiar chapter that contains the story about, or the lesson on the virtuous woman. That's using the King James Version of the Bible. But we're going to read the first verses and not the latter verses that normally contain the bulk of that message. So will you follow along as we read? The sayings of King Lemuel, an inspired utterance his mother taught. Listen, my son, listen, son of my womb. Listen, my son, the answer to my prayers. Do not spend your strength on women, your vigor on those who ruin kings. It is not for kings, Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, not for rulers to crave beer, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed and deprive all the oppressed of their rights. Let beer be for those who are perishing, wine for those who are in anguish. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and needy. As we've gone through the series, we have talked about the fact that we're all on a faith journey, and our final destination will differ from our point of origin. And the question, of course, is, where are you now? The amount of progress that it appears we make on our faith journey always relates to the point of origin. Sometimes we'll look at folks and not think they've made many gains when they actually have. And so the question is, where are you going? And your journey of faith will be greatly influenced by the women in your life. You see, take it back just one more time. You see, what we had to do was go around that pole. That's the entrance to the parking lot on the Carr Avenue side, and behind it there's Vanderbilt Electric that has done some of our work. So once again, we appreciate everything that's been done. First thing I want you to notice with me today from the text is that women teach valuable lessons. Some matters, to be truthful, are better taught by women. Now, we live in a day when there are some that would say that men and women are interchangeable parts, and I can sort of understand why that is said in some ways. I mean, there's some types of things that a woman can do about as well as a man can do, or vice versa. But there are some things that men are better at and some things that women are better at. Now, a lot of us have had the experience of being forced into a situation where we had to do something that we were not really equipped for. And if a person does not have important spiritual women in their lives, there are going to be some things that they're not taught as well by men. It is not always the case that a person will have good influences from the male and female perspectives. Today we're talking about the influence of women in our lives. We're talking about family matters in a way. You know, everybody didn't come from a great family. It thrills my heart when people can say that they had a mother or a father that was a good example for them. But that's not true of everybody. And there are a lot of folks today in our world, it's ever been, but this is the times that we're living in today. There are a lot of children that are being raised in single-parent homes. And let me say, God bless the men and women that are doing their best to fulfill the male and female role in people's lives. God bless them. You know, the ideal will ever be, but life is not ideal a lot of times, and things happen. Many times I have been on the road somewhere and seen over on in a yard that I was passing a little boy, maybe 5, 6 years old, a young one, playing catch with his mother. Now, I'm aware, ladies, that some of y'all know how to catch a ball, but you still throw like a girl. I'm aware that but you know what I think every time I see that, and this may not always be true, I'm aware, but I always think, no man in that home. And I'm not saying that single dads and single moms can't do great jobs. They can. But it'd be the best if a person had good influences from a male and female perspective. I've been married for 40 years, almost 41. My wife said, today's Mother's Day, I'm going to be in the back. I said, don't you say anything about me, so here I go. There are just some things that, look, there is a gap between men and women. And you might have the best husband or wife that there is, or as good as can be found, but there is still a gap. God made it that way. If God did not mean it for that way, mean it to be that way, He would not have said it's not good for Adam to be alone. And He didn't. So, let me say this. Do the best that you can. As you parent your children, mom or dad, whatever, do the best that you can in the circumstance you find yourself. It may be less than ideal. By the way, there's not one thing in your life that is ideal. Not one. And you do the best that you can in the situation where you find yourself. And many times, there is no clear path. We've been talking about walking by faith. And a part of walking by faith is being willing to walk in the dark. Not knowing exactly where you're going, but committed to a purpose and committed to a goal. My children are grown, our children are grown and gone from home. When yours are grown and gone from home, you're going to look back and you're going to think, I wish I'd done this different. There's never been a parent that lived who did not feel that way. I often tell people parenting is a guilt trip, because every time your kids do something you don't want them to do, you feel like it's your fault. You know, if only if I hadn't worked so much, or if I'd have been home more, or only if I'd have been more active in school. I understand that. There's no way that you can escape that, but just do the best that you can in the situation that you find yourself. One of the poets that I like, although he was more than a poet, is a fellow by the name of Langston Hughes. And in 1922, he published the poem, Mother to Son. Well, son, I'll tell you, life for me ain't been no crystal stair. It's had tacks in it and splinters, and boards torn up, and places with no carpet on the floor, bare. And sometimes going in the dark where there ain't been no light, but all the time I've been climbing on and reaching landings and turning corners. So boy, don't you turn back. Don't you step down on the steps, because you finds it's kinder hard. Don't you fall now, for I see I'm still going, honey. I'm still climbing. And life for me ain't been no crystal stair. I wish I'd done better. Just honest confession. I wish I'd done better. But I got some things right. And I hope that you can say you got some things right. And life for you ain't been a crystal stair. But you drive by Cookville High School today, you would think you were on a new car lot. My kids never drove a car one day as bad as the cars I drove with them in it. Life's not a crystal stair. But there are some matters that are better taught by women, and God has always used women in His Word. Now, even God approaches the matters of male and female a little differently, and to be honest, there's some disagreement, some discussion over exactly how that fits. But God's got a place for you in His work. God has always used women in His work, and there's things that women can do better than men. By the way, I'd rather have a woman on my side of the fight than a man any day. And I'm good at the future. Lemuel's mother gave insights to her son, secondly. And here's a couple of things. First of all, she gave the personal insights. Number one, she said, you came from me. You came from me. Now, I know with your kids, you get to a point where you say, who are you? You know, where did you? But she said, don't forget, you came from me. Some of you that are from a little older generation, you know, maybe my age or right about around there, do you ever remember your parents teaching you something along the lines of, don't bring shame on your family name? That was considered to be something of great worth. Pastor friend of mine who's retired, I met in Missouri, he said that when he would go out on dates or go out somewhere at night, that his mother would always say to him, don't forget who you are. You came from me. Now, let me say this. There is some disagreement over exactly who Lemuel was. Okay? People have thought it would be Solomon. I mean, it's in the Proverbs, you know, that's, you know, sort of seemed like it would fit in. But it could have been another king. But if it was Solomon, then this would have been Bathsheba talking to him. Have any of you ever had the occasion to say to your kids, or had your parents say to you, don't you do one of these? She said, you came from, and then she said, you're the answer to my prayers. I prayed for you. Most of you will not see miracles of biblical proportion in your life, but you will see God's leading, and you may see miracles. And you'll see God's hand with you if you'll commit your way to Him. You are the trip I did not take. You are the pearls I cannot buy. You are my blue Virginia lake. You are my peace so far in the sky. You are the flower beneath the sun, in darkened sky, a bit of blue, answering disappointments, glow with I am happy, I have you. Many years ago, we were at a dinner with some family members, and I was sitting between Brian and Brandon. And somebody who didn't know me too well came up and we started talking, and I was sitting at the table and this person was standing and said to me, he said, well, what are your hobbies? And I said, hobbies? Got a science project due tomorrow. And so she told Lemuel, she said, you are mine. You came from me and you would answer to my prayers. And then she gave him some practical instructions beyond the personal. She said, do not do some things. And the first thing she said was, don't let sex ruin you. That's in verse 3. I tell people all the time, if you want to mess yourself up, sex is the way to do it. There is no better way to get people mad with you, have people hurt, ruin your life. Somebody says, did sex kill you? Killed Stephen there. Then she said, don't let substances ruin your life. And that's in verses 4 through 7. And this is basically what she said. Responsible people, and she talks about governmental rulers, but responsible people cannot be governed by substances. Talking to a fellow years and years ago, was in his house preparing to write a paper and to submit to authorities, and I was asking him questions. Where are you from? You ever been married? You got any children and whatnot? And I went through all of this long thing, and he told me about his substance use history, and so I said, well, what was the main thing that substances, the main impact on your life? He said, well, they make you make bad decisions. And so I went through the whole thing, and then when I got done, I said, let's just run down through this again to make sure I haven't made any mistakes. And that was when I noticed, I missed it the first time, that was when I noticed that he had 2 children, little children, that were 6 months apart. And so I said, I might have gotten this wrong. I said, here it says you got 2 little children the same age, and they're 6 months apart. He said, I told you I made bad decisions. People who give in to intoxication make bad decisions. They just do. And then he goes on, he says, substances are for the dying. Now, he didn't have the ability we have to reflect on today. But he's talking about some type of drink, some type of alcohol. He said, let people, if there's going to be some intoxication, let it be for people that are at the end of life. Well, they don't do that now. They don't come in and say, so-and-so, now that you're at the end of life, what would you have us to do for it? And he says, give me a bottle of Jack. That's what I want at the end of life. But what they do is morphine, right? Other substances that will help. By the way, one of the things morphine is used for is help people with their breathing. That will help, that'll be analgesic, that'll help them forget their sorrow. Isn't that what he said? Or forget, their problems. Why? Because they're at the end of life and it's got medical use. By the way, a person can be substance dependent and not addicted. For instance, a person who has a heart condition who has to have a certain pill every day, or they have problems with their heart, they're dependent on that pill because they have to have it. That doesn't mean they're addicted to that substance. It means they have to have it. So you see, even with some of these hardcore things, people may need them for particular things, but that doesn't mean they're an addict to whatever that substance happens to be. So she said, don't let sex ruin your life, and don't be governed buy substances. They'll ruin your life too. And then she said something on a different note. She said, speak up, son. Speak up. For those who cannot speak for themselves. She said, I don't want you to be known for living a promiscuous lifestyle or being addicted to substances, but I want you to be known for as someone who speaks up for folks who cannot speak for themselves. She said, speak up for the rights of the destitute. Son, speak up for justice. Speak up for the poor and needy. And she says it in a couple of different ways. You don't have to go to the third world to find poverty. And you don't have to cross the ocean to find lost folks. And God bless folks that do that. But there are folks that don't live very far from you that need the gospel or need help, and you can be a part of that. And so she said, son, there's some things I don't want for you, but there's some things I do want for you. So these lessons for Lemuel are well taken today. Number one, control yourself. Number two, contribute to society. That's some simple things, some simple points. It might be hard to do sometimes. Control yourself. You want to stay out of trouble? Well, control yourself. That'll help. Be a positive member of the community. Thirdly, a noble woman is a good citizen, wife, and mother. And that has to do with the last part of the chapter that we did not read the verses, and they're more familiar than the first 9 verses. King James Version calls it a virtuous woman, price above rubies. NIV calls it a noble woman. Lemuel's mother had advice on women. Now, I've got an idea. You guys that are here, I've got an idea that there's not one of you who, when you started dating that little thing, went to your mom and said, hey, Mom, what do you think? But I got an idea that a woman has a better idea of what kind of woman might be good for their son than sometimes they do. And so Lemuel's mother said, I want to tell you what kind of woman you want. See, people all the time getting things they later don't want. Any of y'all got a car right now you don't want? Looked good, didn't it? You know, you got to pay for that thing every month. Of course, most of y'all pay cash, I know, but still. So what kind of girl would I want from my son, or my son, that he came from me, I want him to live a certain way? What's a noble woman like? Well, she's a good citizen, a good wife, a good mother. Now, I'm not going to read all the verses, but let me just synopsize what they say. First thing, Lemuel's mother said, you can't put a price on her. You can't put a price on her. I want to, let me tell you something about marriage, and some of you know better than me, but did you know how expensive it was going to be? My wife got as many shoes as Roger Reed's. There's all these other, you know what I mean? You thought that you just going to, it's done, but that's not how it works. You want to be with someone that you don't mind the price. Don't you? She's going to be priceless. What is she like? She has the confidence of her husband. I talk to men all the time, don't trust their wives. All the time. They'll tell you. Preacher, what would you do if some guy at work harassed your wife? Let him try it. Go ahead. Let's see how you do. The noble woman has the trust of her husband. She's got his confidence. Look, a person doesn't have to do everything right for you to have confidence in them. They don't have to. But you have to have a feeling you can trust him. And then his mother said she brings good things. Now, I know occasionally we all bring bad with us. But we want the general track of our life to be that we are positive things. Then she's industrious. She's industrious. She's caring. She provides for her house. Her husband is respected. Now, I've got an idea that the reason that's in there is because it's saying he's respected, at least in part because of her. I mean, I think that's the teaching of the chapter. She's wise, which is a practical application of knowledge. And she herself is respected. There are a lot of women that really pour over these things and almost get themselves in a discouraged state because they feel like, I can't do all these things. That's not the point. The point is that these are goals. Don't you, as a parent, care who your child marries? Don't you? Mom, who do you think I want to marry? Well, just marry any one of them. They're all the same anyway. Just go and pick one out. They'll be fine. You know, Lemuel's mother had a goal for him. Now, you can't control your kids' lives. You can't. But Lemuel's mother said, you came from me, and there's some things I want you to be. And one of the things I want from you is I want you to have a good life. There are a few things that are more important than the people you let in your lives. Few things. And people that we get united in a bond of matrimony with make a huge difference in the way we do, in the way our children are brought up. And honestly, it helps us spiritually to have positive women in our lives that set good examples. Who's in your life today? Well, I'm aware that your life is not ideal. Mine's not either. Everything's not just like your spouse is not everything they should be, but you're not either. You know, we're always talking about how that we should exhibit the grace of God to one another as believers, right? God gave us grace, so we give grace to one another. Well, while you're doing that, extend some grace to your spouse. Let's pray. In your life, are you avoiding the negative things that would do you damage? Are you seeking the best in your life? Are you setting a good example to others with your life? sermon of any description that doesn't convict my soul. You can't look into the perfect law of liberty and say, I've touched all the bases, I'm doing everything like I need to. But what we want to do as believers is live penitent, confessional lives before God. Are you doing that? Father, today I want to thank you for the positive influences that I've had in my life by women that I've known over the years, my own mother as well. And I thank you, Father, for women in our church, and I just pray that you will lay your hand on each one and give them guidance and direction as they try to do the right things. And Lord, so many times we fail and we're in need of grace, and we ask you for that. But I just pray that you will lighten that lady's heart, Lord, give her strength for the journey. Father, when I pray for our women, I pray for our church in general, our friends, our families. And that we do the best we can in the circumstances in which we find ourselves and give the glory and honor of our lives to you. Now, I thank you for this wonderful day that we've been able to be in your house. Once again, I want to pray your blessing down. Lord, ask for your grace and guidance to the ladies of our church. And may we, Lord, love and respect them. And may we honor them as we do for all the children of God. And once again, we thank you for your forbearance and your mercy in bringing us to this day. We ask all these things for Jesus' sake. Amen. I'm glad you're here today. Congratulations, ladies. I appreciate you. And God bless you as you walk through life. May you do it with your hand in God's. And hope the Lord be good with you today. We're going to stand, please. Blessing, the prayer of the lifting up of hands. Join me, please. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace.